You're listening to Three Makes Baby, a podcast about fertility, family, and genetics. I'm Jana Ruffnow, a fertility counselor and author of Three Makes Baby. Welcome to the show. Hello, I am back today with a return guest, and I'm excited because that's what season 2, you're going to hear from a few guests that were on with us during season 1 and have come back to share more about their journey, which, I'd love, because then we get to see kind of some more sequential things happen, and you get to understand how things might, how you might relate to different parts of the journey as well. And just new information is always good. So without further ado, I want to welcome Brittany back to the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So if you remember, I think, Brittany, you were like our second guest, and you talked about, I can't remember now how far along pregnant you were at the time when you came on the show. Pretty early. Do you remember?
I want to say I was like 10 or 11 weeks.
Okay. So pretty
yeah,
early.
it was still pretty early.
And now you are?
Now I am 2 weeks away from having this baby.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. Time went by so fast.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And so much has changed since we spoke too, just with the whole world right now. So we can talk about that a little, but I definitely want to start with hearing your journey and any updates you might have, and how you're doing, anything that you might want to share with listeners.
Yeah, well, so I want to just start by saying everyone will tell you when you finally get pregnant, enjoy your pregnancy. And you're like, yeah, I am. And they say it goes by so fast, but like, listen to them, because it seriously goes by so fast. And I have enjoyed this pregnancy. I've like soaked up every minute of being pregnant, feeling him move, all the ultrasounds. I've loved being pregnant. And I actually am kind of sad to not be pregnant anymore in a couple of weeks, because I feel like it took us like 2 years to get pregnant. And then like the first trimester, you're just so scared the whole time that you're going to lose the baby. And then you get through it, and then you just basically have 6 months left, and it just flies by.
Well, it's good to hear you were able to enjoy and not feel as anxious after the first trimester. That's good to hear.
Well, even during the first trimester, I promised myself I was just going to enjoy every minute that I had with this baby. Because I'd been wanting to be pregnant for so long that I would have days, of course, where I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm pregnant anymore. But I would just be like, you know what? I'm just going to soak this up, and I'm pregnant now. And for as long as this lasts for, I'm going to enjoy this. And I'm so fortunate that it worked on our first transfer. And we didn't do PGS testing since we used donor eggs. So I was a little nervous with that. But everything has been great. And
good.
Yeah. Good. So just for anyone who's listening.
Yes, that's so encouraging. It's so encouraging.
But yeah, everything has been great. I forget that I'm pregnant with a donor egg baby.
You do? Yeah. Yes. Because it's so real, and it's in your body, and it's part, physically so much part of you right now.
Yeah. He's 100% my baby, and just knowing that he is getting nourished by everything that I eat. My heartbeat is like his favorite sound that will just calm him. And just like knowing that when he comes out, that I'm mama, and I'm going to be the person that he wants the most. Like it doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like I have to like remind myself like, oh yeah, he's not going to share my DNA, and it doesn't bother me at all. And I think it's because I took so much time to grieve the loss of my genetics.
Yeah. He knows your heartbeat. He knows your sounds and smells, and, you're what he has come to know in his formation inside. So that's all familiar to him. And yeah, I like the way you said that. That's so true. So yeah, that is I think that is helpful for people that are earlier on in their journey or just going through the beginning stages. Of course, everything's on hold right now, but that, that won't be on hold forever. So people will be able to continue down that path. Has there anything happened or any new information or new developments since we last spoke?
Yes. So I don't know. I guess apparently this isn't a rule or like a law. It's a suggestion to that donors should only be able to do like so many cycles. And I believe for egg donation, it's 6. So yeah, I definitely keep track of my donor and like the clinic and kind of figure out when she's doing more cycles. I was told that we were going to be her last cycle because she didn't want to do any more, I guess, after that.
And how do you keep track of her? She's not a known donor to you, is she?
No, she's not. Well, so I know who she is now because of freaking Instagram. Apparently, I think I talked about this last time that we have mutual friends, and she actually came up in my Explorer page one day.
Okay.
Did I tell you that last time?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, she came up. One of my really good friends actually dated her brother.
Oh, wow. No way.
Yeah. We have like 5 mutual like followers, and I was just scrolling through Instagram one day and I saw her picture and I was like, that looks like my donor. And I clicked on it and sure enough, it's her. So I know who she is.
You do, because you have a picture of her from the profile that you were given.
I have multiple pictures of her from her profile.
Yeah.
But yeah, but obviously I've never reached out to her. I don't like show people this is our donor, I just kind of was like, oh crap. Like I didn't tell anyone for probably a month. And then I finally told my husband, I was like, I have to tell you something. He was like, this isn't good. I was like, it's fine. It's fine. But and, but the way that I keep tabs of her cycles is through the website, because it'll show her like available, and then it'll show her in a cycle, and then it'll show her available again.
Okay. Oh, wow. Really?
Yes. So since our cycle, I want to say she's done 2 more retrievals. So we were her 5th. So then she did her 6th, and then she just did her 7th, and now she's freaking up there again as available for another cycle. So
with the same clinic?
Yeah. So I actually reached out to the clinic because I was like, I was extremely frustrated after our cycle when I saw her up there again. But I was like, well, I think that she's allowed to do one more, so it's fine. But then I saw her up there again. So I reached out to the donor. Oh my God, my brain doesn't work. The donor coordinator. And I was like, hey, my donor is showing active again. I thought that she's done all 6 or 5, however many it is, that she's technically allowed to do. And she was like, those are guidelines. It's not like a law or a rule. And you have such a strong donor. And since, the doctor doesn't see it, it's not like negatively affecting her. And she's still getting really good quality embryos, and we're getting a lot of eggs from her. He's going to let her do another cycle. And I was kind of like,
no, that's not. The guidelines are there for, a reason.
It's extremely frustrating for me. And I don't even know the proper words because I get so frustrated, but it's just wrong.
It is wrong. It's, for one, the guidelines are there because they're, for one, for the donor's perspective. There are no long-term studies on the effects of stimulation, especially multiple times, to know how this is going to affect her health long-term. So they limit it to 5. And for the families that are using her donated gametes to have their babies and have children, it's important to limit so your children don't have multiple half siblings like in the 80s and 100s, like sperm donation, because it's very difficult for people to kind of have relationships with that many half siblings if they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too difficult, and there aren't social narratives to make it make sense and for people to be fully comfortable or able to comprehend what that means to have that many siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we know now with DNA testing, consumer DNA testing, that people can find their donor, and it's difficult for donors to manage multiple offspring that could be curious about meeting them. There was a donor in one of my guest donors moved to Norway, and I'm not sure if that's why he moved away, but he had ended up having over 80 offspring,
Oh
from
my
his sperm
gosh.
donation. And, he's in Norway now. And I'm like, you can't help but wonder if he was just like, oh my gosh,
Get me out of here.
get me out. Yeah. That's just hard. Can you imagine 80 people? Yeah. So there's lots of reasons for it that we should be following the guidelines. That's why they're there. And no, they're not enforceable. How could they enforce it? They could fine clinics that they found out were doing this. And, who's they? Maybe the ASRM, maybe the government's not involved. There's no law established to regulate the clinics. So it's really up to their ethical guidelines. It's up to them to make the right ethical decision.
That's the word I'm looking for. I feel like it's so unethical.
It is. I agree with you. It is unethical.
Yeah.
And they will justify it and say they're helping families, and that makes it ethical. But you and I know that that's a cover for making money.
Yes. And also, may I add that clinic does shared cycles. So there's two intended parents on every cycle that this girl is doing.
Okay. So she's done 7 donations, which means 14 families.
Yes.
At least.
Yes. Okay. So that means that my baby has at least 14 half siblings right now.
And that's well over the recommendation of the number of donations. Now, they don't specify if they can split it. Again, there's a little bit of gray area there, and you can read it however you want. But if you know what the ethical intentions are behind it, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. So, yeah, I've been a little disappointed in my clinic with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it's just like, I just think about my children, and like as they get older and having all these half siblings to worry about or think about or try to understand how it turned into what it's turned into.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. When you were informed about using an egg donor, did the clinic tell you they were limiting it to 5 or 6?
Oh my gosh, that was so long ago.
But you thought that was going to happen, right?
Yes, I was under the impression that was going to happen.
So they must have informed you. They must have told you that this is what we limit it to. Maybe you had a question back then. And then when you're pregnant and you're going to have your baby, you find that's not true. And then you ask them and they say, well, it's a guideline. Well, then if that was the case, that should have been communicated up front. Like, hey, this is a guideline, but we don't follow it. Right?
Yeah, totally.
This is a guideline we don't follow. So why am I even telling you this guideline right now? Right? They gave you an impression of a limitation and had no intentions of ever keeping that.
Yep. 100%.
Or once things turned out favorably for them, they didn't have an intention of keeping it any longer.
Yeah, that's they're like, okay. Oh, she's a strong donor, so let's just.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That shouldn't matter.
Well, and since I know who she is too, my friend who dated her brother does not know that we use donor eggs, but I have like wrestled with telling her and being like, this girl is our donor, and like having her like say something like, hey, just so that you know, one of my friends used you as a donor and blah blah blah. But I'm like, I can't do that. It's so wrong. But like when I see this happening and I feel like I have zero control over what happens, part of me wants to, like the mama bear in me wants to like take control into my own hand, like try and control it and be like, well, maybe if she knows that someone she knows a family that used her eggs, maybe it'll spook her enough to stop doing this.
Yeah.
You know,
that it's really close to home and that there are consequences that are right in front of her, really just 2 people away within, one person of a connection, really. What do you think? Why do you think it would be wrong to reach out and let her know?
I just think that for her privacy,
Okay.
and it's
Yeah.
her own personal business. I don't think it would be right for me to tell someone that knows her. Like my two best
Okay.
friends who know that we
Yeah.
use donor eggs, I've of course shown them her profile. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh my God, look it, dude.
Yeah.
And they're like,
Yeah.
well, but to show someone who personally knows her, I
Mhm.
just think that would not be, I just don't think it would be right after all, she did help me start a family,
Mhm.
you
What if
know?
you reached out to her directly? Is that a violation of your
I
contract?
think legally I'm not allowed to.
It's not a law. You wouldn't be breaking a law, but you might be breaking a contract with them,
Yeah.
with the clinic, right? Is that who it's with or an
Yes.
agency?
Yeah. Like if I ever wanted to reach out to her, I would have to reach out to my lawyer, to talk to her lawyer, to talk to her to see if it's okay if I reach out to her.
Okay. Okay. So it's through the contract. And is it the contract with it's not with her, right? It's with the clinic, or is there an agency it's with?
I
Your
believe
agreement,
it's with the clinic, and
the
her and I
clinic.
both signed it.
See, what's interesting is that they kind of broke their verbal agreement with you, which was we're going to limit this donor that you're using. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting that you're held up to these contractual obligations and they're really not held up to what they said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Like
go ahead.
how would they feel? Like how would he feel if
Exactly.
his daughter had to use donor eggs? Like would he just
Right.
let the donor go and donate multiple times?
No.
Like
Yeah,
it's so unethical, it's so wrong, and I'm just like honestly really disappointed
I
in my
know.
clinic. Well, I
Yeah.
definitely have posted in an egg donor group that I'm in about this, just saying,
Yeah.
hey, anyone who's
Yeah.
looking at SMF fertility, just so that you know, my donor
Good.
is about to be on her 9th cycle if she gets picked up by another couple. So just keep that in mind.
Good for you. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
did that because
Yeah.
the
People need to
more
know.
they need to know and they need to be informed. And you know what? The more transparency that we have in this field and the more doctors are transparent and open and truthful, the better practice they're going to have and the better off everyone is going to be. And I think that should be the rule is the people, you and other families that are doing this, that they will have to be the ones that sort of lead the cause for change and
Mhm.
force change by saying, we, the consumer in this situation, we're not going to use you, doctor so and so, if you aren't going to be transparent. Then we know
Yeah.
you're hiding something and we're not going to use you. And then it starts
Mhm.
hitting their bottom line too. So that's great that you did that because that kind of information will really help. Yeah. And we have to empower people like you, moms and dads and families and donor conceived adults. They have to feel empowered, like they have a voice and they're being heard and listened to. And doctors can be dismissive. So if someone is in that group, Sally, was in that group, she saw your post, she went to the same fertility clinic and said, hey, I heard you guys are not limiting your donors. And like, oh, no, 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 what made you think that? Oh, well, so and so said that you did. No, 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 she misunderstood, right? This is the kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And then people feel like, oh, my doctor said that, so they must be right. I can't question my
Mhm.
doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we need to realize is yes, you can. You can question your doctor and you should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
It's your life, your baby.
Yeah, and your future. So, and are you
Hmm.
thinking of having another baby with the same donor? Do you have more eggs or
Yeah,
embryos?
we have 5 embryos left over.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get this baby out, and then we're just
Yeah.
gonna give it a year of just kind of trying natural and see if we are one of those crazy stories that you hear
Uh-huh.
about,
Yeah.
and see if we get lucky. Because I'm 33.
Mhm.
So I'm still a little bit younger, kind of.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, we're gonna see. But if nothing happens within a year, then we're gonna do another transfer. And then if
Yeah.
something does happen and we get pregnant naturally, then we're gonna still use another embryo
Yeah.
after, because
Mhm.
I don't want to have one biological child and then one donor conceived child. I
Mhm.
wouldn't want my baby that I'm pregnant with now to feel like he's different.
Yeah.
So we've like thought about it and talked about it, and that's like our plan. Like, well, if we do,
Yeah.
you know, randomly get pregnant naturally, we're still going to have to use one more of our embryos just so that our first baby doesn't feel
Yeah.
different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So you want 3 total?
3 if we get pregnant naturally on with the second one, but only 2 if
Okay,
we
only 2 otherwise.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Eh,
I'm like already ready for another baby. I love being pregnant. So
oh, good. That's so great. That
yeah.
is awesome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me
Absolutely.
back. And
Awesome.
all
Well,
right.
have a good
Thank you so
weekend.
much. You
Okay.
too.
Bye, Brittany. Bye-bye.
Bye.